Hello, thank you so much for clicking on my video. Today we're going to be discussing Lore Olympus. I would have talked about Lore Olympus sooner, but it has over 100 episodes currently. I believe it's still ongoing, and at the time of this recording, it has over 100 episodes. And it just kind of seemed like such a mammoth task to start at the beginning and review it from chapter 1 all the way to where we are now. And I am current, so I know everything that's happened in the story so far. But I decided to actually give this a shot because Lore Olympus is actually my favorite webcomic on Webtoons, and it's what I look forward the most to. And I decided, if I like it so much, I should talk about it. Granted, I talked about Let's Play first because Let's Play had a lot of tropes in it that were making me very, 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 very angry. And I needed to vent about how upset I was with some of the characters and the plot going on in that story. It was just so fucking ridiculous. Not even funny. So that was why I was like, let's go with something I actually do love and enjoy, just for the pure sake of it. Not that there aren't things that happen in Lore Olympus that I do not like or that piss me off, but Lore Olympus appears to be trying to appeal to you psychologically and emotionally, and as instead of like, okay, here's a story. There's tropes in Lore Olympus that are related to trauma, relating to self-esteem, relating to therapy, relating to relationships, good and bad, familial relationships, relationships between lovers, marital relationships too, and the breakdown thereof. There are all of these nitty-gritty little small things that help to pull the story together and make it a beautiful fusion of color and good story. So Rachel Smythe, who is the author and the artist for Lore Olympus, has decided to adapt the story of the abduction of Persephone by Hades. Very famous story from Greek mythology. She's decided to rewrite that and to make it less rapey, for lack of a better term. In the original story, Hades saw Persephone from afar. Hades, the god of the underworld. He saw Persephone from afar, fell instantly in love, and immediately decided to kidnap her and take her down to the underworld to be his queen. He didn't ask for consent or anything. I believe he made a chasm happen, open up in the earth. He burst out of it on a chariot, grabbed her, and took her back down to the underworld with him and closed up the chasm behind him. So Persephone's mother, who's the goddess Demeter, who's the goddess of the hearth and of the harvest, was so devastated by the loss of her daughter Persephone that she caused famine to happen in the land. She wasn't doing her duties. She wasn't making sure that the crops were healthy. She wasn't making sure that the land was doing well. Everything was just barren. And she spent so long walking the earth searching for her daughter that the mortals prayed to Zeus, complaining to him, we can't feed our families. There's no food. There's no crops. And Zeus has to go and get Demeter and be like, listen, you need to do your job because you're fucking stuff up down there in the mortal realm. And Demeter is like, I will do my job if you restore my daughter to me. So Zeus tells Hades, who is his brother, listen, buddy, you need to return Demeter her daughter because the earth is just absolute chaos right now because of what you did. So Hades, being all slick and whatnot, is like, oh, sure, I'll return her. Listen, Persephone, yes, I'll let you go. You can go back to your mom. Before you go, though, are you hungry? Would you like perhaps some of these pomegranate seeds that I have here? And Persephone is so fucking glad to be able to leave. I don't know whether or not she had fallen in love with him during the course of the time she was there. I don't know if she just hated him just because he had kidnapped her against her will, and separated her from everything that she knew or was familiar with and everyone she loved. She was just so fucking glad to get away from him. She's like, oh, sure, you want me to eat some fruit? Okay, fine, I'll eat some. So she takes some pomegranate seeds and eats them. And then Hades is like, gotcha, bitch. Now you can't leave because you ate something down here in the underworld. Okay, so that means that you're chained here. You're still mine. And which, yeah, this was the way that the Greeks had of explaining the seasons. So essentially, the bottom line is that Persephone gets to go back home to the Earth realm and to her mother, but she doesn't get to stay there all year. The times that she's up there with her mom, Demeter is happy and she's doing her job and making sure that everything is flourishing, the crops are healthy, and all that sort of stuff. That's the time of spring and summer and part of the fall. But when she has to go back down to the underworld, she has to give her daughter back to Hades again. During that time is when the leaves start to fall off the trees and the snow, everything, the earth, you can't grow anything because it's so cold. The earth is hard as a rock. It's because she's grieving during those times of the loss of her daughter. So until her daughter's returned to her again, it's just going to be wintertime. And that's just how the myth was. Persephone, her daughter, ironically, is the goddess of spring. So her coming back up to the earth is when spring starts. So it all kind of links together in a very nice story. Rachel Smythe said, that story, fuck that story. It's rapey. I don't like it. It has a lot of issues. Let's do something fun. So the first thing she did was to make sure that all of the gods and goddesses of Olympus are color-coded. Beautiful technicolors. Absolutely lovely. So Persephone, who is the female lead, is completely pink. Her skin is pink. Her hair is pink. Her eyes are pink. Well, not pink eye like, being like she's got a conjunctivitis or an eye issue, but just, the irises of her eyes are pink. So she's got a pink motif. And my husband told me if I'm going to be talking about people on here, characters, I should probably show a picture of them, show something up here on screen, like, and here's what they look like. But because I'm not technologically savvy and I've just started to figure out how Zoom works and the pandemic has been going on for about a year at this point, I don't know how to do all of that. So I'm going to do the next best thing. So here's Persephone. Okay. Here she is. All right. Now, my printer, for whatever reason, decided that it doesn't like the color pink. And for whatever reason, only half of the picture is pink. This is all supposed to be pink. So just pretend that she's completely pink, okay? And that's Persephone. So she's, as you can see, she's a very young girl. She's 19, I believe, at the beginning of this story. This is her first time in this story of being able to go to Olympus. She's been raised in the mortal realm up until the beginning of this story and has decided to attend college up in Lore Olympus on a scholarship. Now, the male lead is named Hades, who is the god of the underworld. We already have talked about him. And here is his picture. Once again, for whatever reason, my printer says, fuck the color blue, and only made maybe 4/5 of this picture the right color. So just picture this part to be blue as well. It's the same shade as everything else. Okay, so I hope that satisfies my husband, that I show pictures of who I'm talking about. Okay, see, love? I showed pictures, okay? The printer's fucked up. It's not my fault, but I showed pictures like you told me to, okay? Anyways, moving on. The story begins. Hades is about to attend a party that's being thrown by Zeus, and he's there to pick up his girlfriend Minthe, who is a nymph. He's at her apartment. He's parked outside waiting for her, but she's decided for whatever reason she's going to stand him up. He calls her. It's like, bitch, where are you? You're supposed to be going to this party with me. And she's like, I don't feel like going to the party. I don't feel like being seen with you right now. I don't want to be seen in public with you. And he's like, what the fuck? She's like, listen, okay, no matter how nice your suits and stuff are, that you wear are, you're always going to stink of death. So that's why I don't want to be seen with you right now. So fuck off. So he shows up at the party. He's all embarrassed because, he doesn't have a date. When she said what she said, you could tell that hurt his feelings because he leaned his head against the steering wheel and was like, damn. So she really hurt his feelings. He shows up at the party and the first person he sees is Hera, Zeus's wife. Zeus is the king of the gods, I believe, and Hera is his wife, so she's the queen of the gods. She's also the queen of marriage and fertility, I believe. Ironic, because the Hera from the mythology that we know has a horrible marriage with Zeus, so it makes no sense to me that she's the goddess of marriage. I find that to be quite ironic and sad. Oh, yes. That's why June, which is named after Juno, which is the Roman equivalent of Hera, June is supposed to be the best month to get married because that's a month that's automatically going to be a blessing for marriages being performed there. And yet her own marriage is absolute shit. So, you know, I just wanted to point that out. But she sees Hades and is like, where's your date? So he's automatically like, fuck, everybody's going to think I'm a loser because I couldn't get a date. Then Zeus shows up and even he asks Hades like, yo, where's your date? And Hades is like, she's not here. And then Hera says like, oh, well, it's a good thing she's not here because I didn't want to put up with that nymph trash for a night. I was like, well, damn. I mean, I thought Minthi was a piece of shit, you know, but now it seems like everybody else thinks she's a piece of shit too. So, interestingly enough, though, here, remember I said that Hera and Zeus don't have a very good marriage, that their marriage is known for being toxic as shit as far as mythology goes. Here, when we're introduced to them, they're actually flirting with each other, being all playful and affectionate and whatnot, snuggling up with each other. Zeus is joking around with Hera, whispering in her ear, hey, let's get out of here and let's just go somewhere it can be the two of us. She's like, oh, stop it. You're so silly. You can't leave your own party. And Hades is like, what the fuck? I'm still standing here, you know, get a room. And they're like, oh, my bad. And I was like, okay. So from the outside looking in, it would appear that they have a good marriage. But Zeus is known for fucking around on Hera. That's the main thing people know about Zeus. Well, maybe they also know about thunderbolts and stuff too, but I know Zeus because he fucked around on Hera a lot. Hera would get pissed every time she found out that he was cheating on her, and she would go after the illegitimate children he was having with these other women. And sometimes she'd go after the other women too, but she never really seemed to go after Zeus. It's like, bitch, I think you should probably maybe get him first before you start getting on these women. Because also, most of the time that he's getting with these women, that shit ain't consensual. Half the time he's in the form of some sort of animal or some shit. Like there's a myth of him having sex with somebody while he's in the shape of a swan. And then there's a myth of him having sex with somebody, and I say sex here pretty loosely. The chick is standing outside and then there's like golden rain pouring from above, and that's Zeus, and she gets pregnant because of the golden shower, which isn't urine. It's not urine. It's just rain that happens to be golden. That also happens to be Zeus. Okay, that's the mythology. Look, don't hate on me for it. That's the mythology that's been passed down for millennia. I'm just sharing what I know. Okay, there's other stuff he did too, but those are the main examples I can think of. So it's like, maybe you should stop going after his victims and start going after him. Okay, you're just saying, but whatever. In this story, it seems that they actually do have some love and affection for each other, at least at the beginning. So we'll see how that goes on. In the meantime, if I'm looking off screen for a second, it's just me looking at my notes. So I wrote some notes about how all of this, you know, whatnot. I want to make sure I remembered everything that caught my attention. So Poseidon happens to like glance across the room, and he sees this guy across the room. And he's like, "What the fuck, Zeus? You invited Odysseus? What the hell is he doing here?" It's like, oh, that's a great shout out. I love the story of the Odyssey. Everybody knows the Odyssey, right? By Homer, which is about Odysseus and his journey to get home, I believe, from the Trojan War. And because he pissed off Poseidon somehow, I don't remember the particulars, but he pissed off Poseidon somehow, and Poseidon took it upon himself to make sure that Odysseus didn't get home for a very, very long time. Okay, so I like that there's a little shout out, little call out to that here. Poseidon still hates Odysseus. Not sure why Odysseus is up in the realm of the gods. Maybe that has something to do with more of like the story of the Odyssey. I haven't read the Odyssey since 7th grade, so I know I have to brush up on that stuff. But you know, he yells across the room at Odysseus, "Hey, keep it moving for I fuck you up," or something like that. And Odysseus is so frightened that he's trying to get out of there. He bumps into somebody on his way out of there and knocks over this woman, makes her spill her drink. And the woman that he knocks over is Persephone. She's there. She's at the party in the company of the goddess Artemis, who is her roommate in this retelling. And like Hades sees Persephone, and just like in the original myth, falls head over heels in love. It's like love at first sight, insta love, knocked over, bowled over, whatever you want to say. And he's like, oh my God, who is that? Who is she? She is so fucking beautiful. And like, they're like, oh, that's Demeter's daughter. And It's like, I didn't even know Demeter had a daughter. And Zeus was like, oh, well, apparently she doesn't like how I run things up here on Lore Olympus. So she decided to raise her daughter and do all of her duties and stuff down in the mortal realm because she doesn't like me. And I'm like, oh, I wonder why. Hopefully they explore that a little bit more, because that sounds like an interesting story. But in any case, Hades is thinking to himself, like, she's absolutely beautiful. And he says unthinkingly, like without thinking, man, she's so beautiful. She puts Aphrodite to shame. And Aphrodite is at the party. She's actually standing not far behind him when he says it and overhears him, and she gets pissed, rightfully so, because, you know, what the hell, you know, you don't say stuff like that. So, and I was like, what the hell why did he say that? Because even if he hadn't known that she was behind him and could overhear, what if somebody overheard him who knew her and was like, oh shit, I can't believe he said that. And then they ran off to Aphrodite and was like, listen, Hades has been talking shit about you. He's saying this little girl over here is more beautiful than you, and then she puts you to shame. Like, either way, I feel like she would have found out what he said and would have been offended. So she's like, I'm going to teach him a lesson. So she calls her son Eros, or Cupid, in the Roman, as most people know him as Cupid. I was like, listen, get to this party stat. And he's like, Mom, what do you want? I'm in the middle of an orgy. I'm in the middle of an orgy. She's like, fuck your orgy. Get over here now. I need you. And I was like, well, that's kind of cute that they have the kind of relationship where he can openly talk to his mother about the fact that he's in the middle of an orgy, you know, and she's not offended. She's like, you know, I don't care about what you're doing. Get over here. What a nice open relationship they have. Am I right? So, he gets to the party and she's like, I need you to bring me Persephone. So he goes and gets Persephone, gets her drunk because Zeus is talking to Artemis and has her all distracted. So he whisks Persephone off and gets her drunk and then carries her outside to his mother, who's in the parking lot. And she's like, listen, let's find Hades' car. We're going to put her in his car. And here's the plan. Hades is not going to know that Persephone is in the backseat of his car until he gets home from the party. Then he's going to see her. He's going to automatically be disgusted because he's going to think, wow, she's so drunk that she didn't even know which car she was getting into. And also, drunk people say a lot of really stupid shit and they do a lot of embarrassing stuff too. So she's going to make herself look like an ass in front of him because of how drunk she is. In the meantime, she's going to be pretty upset when she, you know, comes out of being drunk, that he's somehow managed to get her back to his house without her knowing. So she's gonna be like, what the fuck, this creepy old man, you know? So she's not gonna like him. So he'll be disenchanted with her because of how she acted, and she'll be disenchanted with him because she'll think that he kidnapped her. So we're gonna fuck up their relationship, or any chance they ever had of having a relationship. And her son calls her out, rightfully so. It's like, Mom, look at her. Look at this girl. Why the hell are you so upset about what he said about this girl? She looks like a cinnamon roll, a small, adorable, tiny cinnamon roll. Once again, please pretend that this is pink. And he's like, why are you jealous of a cinnamon roll? And she's like, shut up. Okay? It's the principle of things. You know, he shouldn't have said what he said. Okay? So, and she's like, and also, you better help me, because after that shit you pulled with Psyche, you know you owe me big time. And then he kind of shuts up, and I was like, oh shit, what's the story there? What's the Lore Olympus take gonna be on the legend of Cupid and Psyche, or Eros and Psyche, you know? Because she's like, I wonder what happened there. I hope they explain it, and I'm sure they will. But he immediately is like, oh yeah, I don't have a leg to stand on. Okay, Mom, I'll do what you want. So Hades gets back to his house, and just like Aphrodite had thought, doesn't realize that he has Persephone in his car until he glances at his back seat and sees her back there. She's just passed out. And this was my fourth time rereading this, so I hadn't noticed before, but she actually had a note taped to her leg that had a heart on it. I assume the note was either from Aphrodite or from Eros, explaining like what, you know, like this is what you get, you know, for saying what you said, you know, like that sort of thing. So he sees that, and he sees her, and he takes her into his house and wakes her up enough, like, here, you should drink some water. You've had a lot to drink. You should probably hydrate. So he has her drink some water. She's still pretty out of it. So then he goes and puts her to bed and, you know, leaves her there. He doesn't join her in the bed. Just like, you know, here's bed. I'm going to sleep elsewhere. No, I hope you feel better in the morning. And even though she's drunk, she still like starts crying. She's like, please don't tell my mom that I got this drunk. She's going to make me move back home with her if she knows how I acted tonight and how much I had to drink. He's like, well, I mean, I may be the god of the underworld, but I'm no snitch. You can count on me. I won't tell anybody. And she's like, thank you. So then she falls asleep. And I was like, oh, you know, that's sweet. Such a fucking gentleman, you know? Making sure she's hydrated, making sure he even makes sure to take her shoes off before he puts her in the bed. And like, you know, oh, if you sleep in your shoes, you can get blisters on your feet. So here you go. Then he goes and sleeps elsewhere like a gentleman should. And so when she wakes up the next morning, she's absolutely mortified that, you know, this ended up happening. And when she bumps into him, she's looking around the house for him, finds out he's got a whole bunch of dogs. She meets Cerberus first. Cerberus is the many-headed dog that guards the gates to the underworld. And here he's a little like a hellhound. Apparently he can sprout additional heads if he needs to, but he essentially looks like your average Great Dane or whatever when he's, you know, not all hulked up with the heads and stuff. He's just a big, beautiful black dog with blue eyes and a blue tongue. Very cute. And she sees the dog, and then she sees Hades, and like she's like, how many dogs do you have? Because then she sees another little small dog that's barking at her. I have a Chihuahua, so I know, you know, the tinier the dog, the louder they bark, and the more mean they are too. So she's like, how many dogs do you have? And he's like, I have 7. And so she's like, well, and he's like, what? And she's like, aren't you going to tell me their names? And the expression on his face, like, it's just the happiest expression because he gets to tell her about his dogs. And as a pet owner, I have 8 pets currently, 7 cats and 1 adorable Chihuahua. I immediately was like, oh, I know exactly how it feels. When someone asks you to tell them about your pet, or pets, plural, and it's like, oh, we can't shut up when it comes to them. You know, we're like, oh, okay, this is their name. This is their breed. This is how long I've had them. This is one of the things that makes them adorable. This is how we met. This is how I chose a name for him. You know, this is what I feed him. All this sort of stuff. We just have all these things that we just love to talk about. Us pet owners just love to brag about our babies. So that endeared her to him, that she asked him sincerely, like, tell me about your pets. So he already was halfway in love with her from the love at first sight thing, but then just meeting her the next morning and just seeing what a nice and genuine person she is just made him like her even more. And in the case of Persephone, like, she was instantly attracted to Hades, you know, because, you know, he's got all these dogs. He's a nice guy. He's kind of dorky, you know, and whatnot. You know, you can tell he's kind of awkward around her, and she's picking up on it, but she thinks it's cute. He's adorkable, if you will. So, like, they're both attracted to each other, and it seems like there's a connection there besides just, hey, I want to jump your bones, you know? Disney does the insta-love stuff, and not everybody likes that love at first sight stuff, and Disney romances are usually pretty shallow. So it looks like here they're attempting to make it an actual real established bond. They've had their meet cute, and now it's time for their love story to begin. Time for them to get to know each other. Time for them to date. Time for them to fall in love organically. They know they both want to fuck each other, but now they want to love each other. They want to know more about each other, and that's where the real love story comes into play. Now, interestingly enough, I wanted to discuss Persephone's relationship with her mother Demeter. As we saw earlier when I told you, you know, she begged Hades, please don't tell my mom that I drank so much. She's going to make me move back home. That immediately gives the impression that she has an overbearing parent, for lack of a better term. And while she was sleeping, you know, at Hades' house, she has a nightmare about her mother locking her inside of a greenhouse and not letting her out, getting rid of all the doors and telling her, listen, if you're locked in here, no one can hurt you. And I have to make sure no one hurts you. So her mother is very overprotective, and her mother appears to just be kind of this huge presence in her life that she's fearful of making her go back home. She doesn't want to go back home. She wants to strike out on her own, be independent, be an adult. And it seems like her mother is doing her absolute most to make sure that that does not happen, that Persephone will eventually come back home to her and take up permanent residence in the mortal realm with her. She doesn't seem like she even wants her to be at Lore Olympus at all. So I'm not really sure how it is that she managed to get there, you know, how her mom even allowed her to go to Lore Olympus. To go to Olympus. I say Lore Olympus, but to go to Olympus in the first place, because it's like, oh, well, it seems like she's in control of everything you do. So how in the world was she okay with you going and living up here and going to these parties and stuff and all this sort of stuff? And that does get talked about later. So one of the things that I very much liked is that, they're talking to each other in the kitchen, and Hades is making coffee and whatnot. And Persephone lies and says she likes coffee. He's like, are you okay with coffee? She's like, sure, I love coffee. And she's lying. I don't think she'd ever had it. So she just wanted to not look like a dork in front of him, I think. Then Hades is like, I should probably take you home. I'm really sorry that all this happened. He even tells her why it happened. And he's like, the reason that this happened, and I'm guessing this is what that note that was taped to her leg said. The reason this happened is because I may or may not have at the party last night mentioned in the hearing of Aphrodite that you put her to shame, and she starts laughing. She's like, you're joking. No one's that stupid to compare two goddesses to each other, right? He's like, yeah, I guess I was joking. Yeah, haha, funny. So he did tell her, though, and she thought that it was a funny story. So then he takes her home. She asks to drive. I was surprised that he let her, because he has a lot of cars. He's obviously very wealthy. And she's like, can I drive, please, please, please? And he's like, okay, sure, why not? So she's driving them home, and she asks him, because the world building of the actual underworld itself is that it's always dark there, it's always cold, it's eternal night, and it's always very cold there. She's like, why is it always so dark in this realm? What's going on? It's like 10 o'clock in the morning, and it's just as dark as it would be at midnight. And he's like, oh, that's because I fucking hate Apollo and I don't want him in my realm. I don't want anything to do with him at all. So that's why it's dark here. I don't want him anywhere near my kingdom. And she's like, oh, really? I haven't met Apollo, so I don't know. I don't know anything about him. And any of you guys who actually have read a lot of Lore Olympus will know why I'm making this face. All I'm going to say is, well, Hades has a good reason for not liking Apollo, okay? There's a lot there. There's a lot to unpack with Apollo, and I am not going to say anything about it right now. Okay, I'm only spoiling the chapters that I am actually talking about. And here I've been discussing, if you were interested, chapters 1 through 11 of Lore Olympus. So I will not talk about Apollo yet. I will discuss him when he actually shows up in the story during my next review video. So, and then we can go in and we can discuss all of that. Okay, so hopefully that'll give you guys a reason to watch my next video, because, oh my gosh. Apollo. I could do a video on him and it'd be the whole thing. He should have his own YouTube video devoted purely to him and all the stuff that happens. But we'll save that for another time. And I'm thinking maybe it was Eros. Eros probably is the one that left the note on Persephone's leg in the car, because Aphrodite specifically wanted there to be a misunderstanding between Hades and Persephone. So it must have been Eros that wrote the note explaining exactly how Persephone ended up in his car. By the way, I wish I knew why Artemis hates Hades so much. Like, she was waiting outside of the apartment for Persephone, and as soon as she saw Hades drive up with Persephone in his car, she runs up to the car and is like, get the fuck out of that pervert's car right now. And I was like, the fuck? Where'd all this energy come from? What the hell did he do? So I really hope that's explored. Like, why she hates him so much. It makes no sense to me at all. So those are my thoughts on the chapters 1 through 11 of Lore Olympus. I think this is probably a good place to end the video. I very much love this series, and I want it to get more attention. I want it to get more fanfare. I want more people to read it and see how wonderful it is. Okay, so don't just take my word on it that these are good characters and that the story is that this story is worth continuing. Just check out the first few chapters for yourself. Or better yet, check out chapters 1 through 11, which is what I just finished talking about. And you can have your own take on what I've said. See if you agree with me. See if you think I'm a piece of shit for what I think. Think I'm just a complete and utter bitch at all. Who knows? It's all good. I'm just glad you watched this far, and I hope you watch my next video too. All right, with that being said, you guys, thank you so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye.